I think that's the most important part. You look at your competitors and go, what are they doing? Who's being successful, and how can I be? Hello and welcome to Pillars of Wealth Creation, where we talk about creating financial success with a special focus on business and real estate. I'm your host, Todd Dexheimer. Now, let's get to it. Hello, welcome back to Pillars of Wealth Creation. I'm your host, Todd Dexheimer. With me, as always, on these Wednesdays, we got Matt Jones. Matt, how are you doing today?
I'm doing excellent. How about you, Todd?
Man, doing fantastic. Yeah, nothing to complain about too much. The year's taking full stride, so that's all fun. We got a lot of the kids' activities going on right now, so that's been a lot of fun, and yeah, just hitting the year hard.
Good. Yeah, I'm just about to attend Raise Fest, which is a conference on raising private capital for in my case for real estate. And
Sure.
I think if you're trying to get serious about real estate, you really need to start attending conferences if you haven't already.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's valuable. The North Star Real Estate Conference, we've kind of taken a different approach this year, and so we've got a quarterly kind of lunch / dinners that we're doing. We got a one coming up here on January 25th. That people can sign up for. So it's NorthstarUnlimited.live. They can go to that. That'll be a great event. But yeah, just attending conferences. I mean, speaking at a conference, it'll already be done by the time this gets aired, but speaking at a conference tomorrow, multifamily local one. So I think you got to get out there. You got to attend conferences. It's not only are you going to get good content that you're going to learn, but you're going to meet people. That's probably, or not probably, that is the most valuable thing about attending these conferences. You're going to meet really good people that are going to be potential really good connections for you in your business. So yeah, 100%. Get out to the conferences. So that's exciting that you'll be there. Hopefully you'll learn a lot and meet some great people.
Yep, I expect so.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Well, cool. With that said, Matt, what are we going to be talking about today?
Well, the first thing I'm curious regarding Airbnb. I know we have a lot of Airbnb investors that listen to this podcast, and we only talk about it once in a while. But I noticed recently that the bookings in Airbnb rentals has gone way down this year as compared to last year. Like people are not renting Airbnbs like they used to, and
Is
plus,
that because people are just traveling a little bit less right now because they're worried about the economy, or do you know, is travel
I
down or is travel up?
I think travel is up compared to last year, at least, because
But
of
bookings
COVID.
are
Yeah, bookings. Well, there's a lot more competition. I think there's a lot
sure.
more Airbnb available,
Yeah.
of units
Yeah.
available than
Yeah,
there
I
used
know
to
a
be.
lot more people that have gotten into Airbnb or short-term rental,
Mhm.
right? A lot of people have gotten into the short-term rental. So yeah, you're probably right. They've kind of flooded the industry with a lot more properties. I mean, I've talked to several people that are doing short-term rental developments that have just a lot more people that have been buying them. You see it more and more, it feels like.
Yeah, I mean, it's easy to get into, especially if you're doing arbitrage, because you're renting a unit from somebody else and then re-renting that on Airbnb
Oh,
or what
sure.
have
So
you.
you don't even need really much money at all. You need a
Yeah,
down payment, and that's about it.
yeah, and then the
First month's
furniture
rent.
or whatever,
Yeah.
yeah, so it's a lot easier for some people to get into than other types of real estate. But yeah, so there's more units on the market, and then also there's been this, I don't know, bad press on the internet of like people just being really frustrated with all the fees and cleaning
Yeah.
fees and
Yeah.
occupancy fees, and so it's become more expensive than it used to be, essentially. And then some hosts have like a big long cleaning list, and so people are like, I could just stay in a hotel and then there's aren't these extra fees, and plus I don't have to
Yeah.
clean the room before I leave.
Yeah, that I'm certainly frustrated. I do a lot of short-term rentals where, that's great for my family because, you get a hotel room, and we've got two kids. And so you got this hotel room with two beds, and it's kind of just, you're in the same room, and the kids go to bed at a different time than we do. So it's kind of a pain. So we oftentimes do short-term rental. But I agree, man. The extra fees, it takes a long time to search through and find a property where you're not feeling like you're getting just taken advantage of by these fees. And then, the thing that irritates me with a lot of these sites and Airbnb included is like, it's like, okay, this is, $300 a night. And then you go to click into it and it's like, after the fees, it's $500 a night. Well, now I got to go out. Now I got to do this one. Well, this one's 385 a night. You click into that, you're like, well, now that's it. This one's only 425 a night. This one's cheaper than the cheaper one because they have less fees involved. And so the other thing I do, and whether this is good or bad, is I go to the Airbnb site, and then if there's any, I will look at Airbnb, compare that to VRBO, and then compare that a lot of times to like Vacasa, however you say that one. And then sometimes there's even other sites that you can go to as well. And a lot of times, if you look as you're reading the description, it'll actually say this property is probably managed by so and so, and you can go directly to their website. You could book it for a lot less, a lot of times. So I don't book oftentimes I don't book through Airbnb. I'm booking through a third party, a different website completely to get, altogether.
And then to Airbnb's credit, they are trying to be more transparent with the fees to give you like the total price before taxes
Yeah.
up front, more so than they used to at least. But even so, it's a tough market right now for Airbnb investors. So I think sometimes you have to like repurpose your Airbnb potentially. I like the idea if you're near a hospital to do kind of midterm renting, like a month at a time, to traveling nurses. There's a lot of that going on right now. And then plus, if you're not supplying linens, then you got no laundry to do
Yep.
in between stays either.
Yeah, and I think it's really important if you are an Airbnb, short-term rental host, and you are in a market where you're seeing your occupancy dip and it's a little bit more saturated. Try to do things to make yourself stand apart. Try to create a better experience. I'm certainly always looking for something unique on properties. So we were just in Utah, and for me, man, the one of the property we rented, it had a hot tub, and it was as simple as it had a hot tub and a sauna, and I was like, this is cool. Like, I'm gonna rent there. So I wasn't looking for anything crazy, right? But that differentiated them from a lot of other properties that didn't have the hot tub. It's hot tub's a little bit expensive, right? But if that allows you to get a lot more bookings, it might be worth it. And then a little sauna, and that sauna didn't cost them that much. It wasn't anything special. It was an outdoor sauna. And so a couple little things like that, and boom, you've got potentially a great place. You can do a lot of things for fairly inexpensive to add some amenities to make this Airbnb vacation rental a little bit more attractive.
I agree. I mean, it's the same as like restaurants that want to succeed. You got to make an experience, something unique that is a cut above the rest. Where you're like, well, I could go to anywhere for the cookie cutter sort of situation, but for this unique experience of like, oh, I'm in a whole different world right now. That's what sets you apart and gets you more bookings.
Like, how easy would it be, Matt, just like thinking out loud right now, if you got a little bit of a property, you got a little flat spot where you got some concrete just to put a putting green out there,
Hmm.
and have a couple of putters that you just, leave, and all of a sudden you got an experience. People can come in and they can use the putting green, and it's just something simple like that, and a couple little extra things, and people love it. So I think just thinking a little bit outside the box and going, what can I do to make this a little more attractive, is going to be helpful. And then, like you said, like, hey, what are my other opportunities? If we're struggling with the Airbnb, we're struggling with that short term. Can we do a midterm? Can we rent? Can we make it a corporate rental? Those types of things. So, and maybe sometimes it's just time to sell as well. And so the sale market, I depends on where you're at, but around here, it's still pretty good. If you're in a highly desirable neighborhood, it's still pretty good. And so, yeah, things aren't quite as frothy as they were 6 months ago, but you're still going to sell your property for a nice price. So if it's something, where you're going, hey, I'm struggling now, maybe it's time to sell too.
Yep.
So
Perfectly fair.
I'm not an Airbnb expert, so you know, you do your own thing.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. But I mean, just like being any kind of entrepreneur, sometimes you have to, shift to adjust to what the
Yeah,
market
I
demands.
I think that's the most important part. You look at your competitors and go, what are they doing? Who's being successful, and how can I mimic
Yep, exactly. It's not like school where you get in trouble for copying. Like,
that?
other people have already done great things. You just do what they're doing, and
Right.
you're going to do well too.
Mhm.
All right. So I sometimes post on online forums to answer people's questions about real estate and stuff. And one of
Yeah.
my, some guy responded to me the other day and said, and I was talking about syndication, and he said, "Oh, syndication is too risky to do. You're better off just buying your own property."
Mm.
So I don't know. What do you think? Is syndication too risky?
Well, there's certainly risk involved. It's a real estate investment, so certainly there's risk involved. I would, obviously I'm biased because I do multifamily syndication, but I also own my own single family houses, and I've owned duplexes, and I've owned small apartments, and so I've kind of owned the gamut. And here's what I would say: multifamily syndication is risky in a couple ways. First of all, you got an inexperienced operator, so there's risk there. You've got an operator that's maybe not being conservative, so there's risk there. Your assets purchased in a bad area, there's a risk there. Um, the market takes a complete change, turn, and of course there's a risk there. So they those are certainly risks. Okay, but same is true on the single family, the duplex, the small apartment building, whatever. There's risks there. Uh, you are buying it yourself. If you haven't bought a lot of properties, or you just don't have the time to dedicate towards it, you're your own risk, right? You are inexperienced. You're your own risk. You're going to make your own mistakes. And you might say, well, yeah, I'm going to make mistakes, but I'm going to, improve. Well, certainly. But if you've got an experienced syndicator, they're probably going to make less mistakes, right? They're not going to make maybe as big of mistakes. They're not going to make mistakes that they might not be able to recover from. That's the idea, of course. Again, everything's a risk still, but you're managing it yourself potentially, or you hire a property management company. Well, now your risk is you hired a property management company. If you manage it yourself, your risk is that, do you really know what you're doing with management? Do you know the legal laws? Do you know how to evict somebody? Do you know how to present a correct lease? Do you know when to have the CRPs filled out? Do you know all these little things that have to go along with it? And if you say, well, I'm going to hire the third party, well, do they know all that? Are they good at doing that? Are you going to be able to manage that manager? So there's certainly a lot of risks on both sides. I would argue that there's more risk if you're going to be buying the property yourself. You're buying likely a smaller property. It's not going to be a 300 unit apartment building. There's definitely more risk with a smaller property. It's just how it is. There's less tenants, and with less tenants, one tenant creates a bigger problem when they leave, or if they're not paying rent, or if they're being disruptive. If I've got 300 units, that one tenant just doesn't really do much. We can get rid of them. It just doesn't change the financial outlook of that property if I've got one, two, three, four, five tenants. But if I've got a duplex and I've got one tenant that doesn't pay rent, now I'm getting 50% of my income. So there's definitely pros and cons to both. But the other thing too, Matt, that I didn't mention is the debt. The debt is a huge one. If you're buying your own property, you are putting that debt in your own personal name. If you're buying into a syndication, what's at risk? Your money's at risk, but your credit's not at risk. You're not signing on the loan. And typically, even if they talk to you and said, hey, we need a key principal, would you be willing to sign on the loan? We'll give you a little bit more equity, blah, blah, blah. You're typically signing on a non-recourse loan. So even with that, typically you're having less risk. And so it's not going to affect your personal credit where, hey, if something goes wrong, not only are you going to lose your money, but you're going to destroy your credit if it's, the property in your own name or in an LLC of yours too.
Yeah, I mean, even with a single family house that you buy with an LLC, you still have to personally guarantee
Have
through
to
the
personally
LLC
guarantee.
to
Yeah.
buy that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. The other thing, look, if a tenant sues you, what if a tenant sues you? Okay, well, if it's your own property, they're going to sue you. Well, I've got an LLC. Okay, that maybe protects you, maybe, if as long as they can't pierce the corporate veil. But if they can, well, then still you're liable. Well, what if I invest in a syndication? Well, guess what? They're suing the entity. It's like them suing Walmart. They're not going after you as a stockholder in Walmart. They're going after Walmart Corporation. And so, yeah, is your money at risk? Certainly, but you personally aren't at risk of being sued. Just your money is the what's again always at risk, and that's regardless both sides. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm fine with people thinking that syndication is risky. That's fine. They just don't understand it, and it's look, it's just not for everybody, and that's how it is.
Yeah, I mean, if you feel like you need to have full control of the deal, then syndication isn't right for you in that case.
Hmm.
But if you want to like keep on growing and like mitigate your risk or costs like hundreds of units, the syndication is a great way to do that.
So, Matt, I mean, this is different, right? It's not the exact same, but you get my point here. Matt, are you safer flying your own plane or are you safer hiring a pilot to fly your plane?
Well, I've never flown a plane that wasn't like on a video game, so I'm going to say I'm better off hiring a professional pilot.
Yeah. And again, it's not exact same, but it's, you get my point with it. The pilot has experience. They've got hours in the sky. They know what they're doing. They've operated this plane before. They know what the gauges mean. You all of a sudden are going in this. Maybe you read a couple books. Maybe you even got on a simulator, but you've never flown the plane before, and now you're going to jump in the cockpit and you're going to take off. And well, what's riskier? Potentially, you can do okay. You can land the plane. Maybe it's a little bumpy along the way. Maybe you hit some turbulence, but maybe the landing is not quite perfect, but you do it. Okay. Or maybe you crash the plane into a mountain because you don't know what you're doing, or you can't even take off the ground because, man, this is way more than what I ever expected. And so the pilot, though, if you hire the right pilot, again, things can happen, right? There's still risk involved. The plane can have a mechanical breakdown. A massive storm can come through, and so there's things that can happen to disrupt that flight and to maybe even cause that flight to crash, but it's a lot less likely with a very experienced pilot, right, than it is with just some guy that's learning how to fly, especially that doesn't have a lot of training.
Yeah, professional pilot, they have experience handling through problems that are inevitable to come up from time to time, and they also have systems in place to be able
Right.
to maintain it. Whereas you
Right.
just trying to figure it out on your own, you might make some mistakes. Like what if you have an LLC, but you only use one account for your personal and for your business together? That's very easy for the lawyers on the other side to pierce your corporate veil.
Yeah, again, it's life and death as a pilot, right? But
Hmm.
and we're not talking the exact same thing, but a perfect example. Like, look, I mean, if I'm my own pilot, that's one thing, but if I'm my own pilot and mechanic,
Hmm.
now I've got even more risk because if I don't know how to be a mechanic. And a lot of people, that's what they are with these houses. They want to be their own mechanic. They're the ones being the property manager. They're the ones doing the maintenance. They're the ones doing the evictions. They're the ones doing the leasing. They want to try to do it all. And so they're being the mechanic, they're being the pilot. They're trying to do it all. And now you got a way more risk involved. And that's what you avoid with the syndication. Plus, you also look, most people that are buying single family houses, duplexes, small apartments, have a 9 to 5 job. And that's where their attention is focused on. And that's probably where their attention should be focused on, because they're probably making good money. That's how they got enough money to be able to buy that single family home. So instead of focusing on something else and taking your eye off the ball, why don't you keep your eye on the ball, focus what you're good at and what you maybe like, and then, do a syndication on the side that's very, very passive, that you're relying on an expert to fly the plane, right? So again, to each their own. It's not, you have to do it this way and you can't do it the other way, but you got to think about kind of where you're at and, what makes sense. And some people are just control freaks, and that's how it is. And that's what they're going to be. And that's okay.
And, I've been on both sides of the coin. I've, managed my own small multifamily and I've passively invested. My favorite kind of money to make is the kind of money I don't have to do any work for, that just shows up in my bank account.
Yeah, it's great when a passive investment all of a sudden sells, or you're getting that mailbox money in, and it's like, man, this is awesome. This is awesome. So yeah, I've done both. I've invested a lot of money. Last year, I invested a lot of money into passive investments. In the last several years, I have, but I also am very active as well. So again, there's no right or wrong answer here.
Yeah, it just depends on what your strategy is, what your goals are,
But to say syndication is riskier, that's just being naive, right?
Yes,
that's just not being educated, and throwing that out there without really understanding it. So,
well, I'll go back on that forum and tell that guy you said so.
Yeah, maybe so you can send him this podcast episode.
Oh yeah,
hey, we talked about this, and again, I would just challenge them to get educated and to understand what syndication really is. And maybe even if they want to take that risk, take 50 grand, or, maybe they can even get into one for cheaper, but take 50 grand and invest it in a multifamily, or it doesn't have to be multifamily, but in a syndication, making sure that they do their due diligence on the operator, right? Making sure it's their experienced operator, has a good track record. I would challenge them to do that. If they've got some money that they're willing to take that risk with, and then come up with your opinion, right? Then go, hey, I don't like this passive investing, and here's why. Or, hey, I guess I was wrong. I really like this passive investing, but it sounds like they're maybe on the outside looking in. And I don't know. It's somebody that posted on social media. So
yeah. And I would say the biggest way to mitigate your risk with syndication is to, make sure you're vetting the sponsors. You want somebody with a proven track record and has high integrity, and you can expect that they're going to do what they say they're going to do.
Yep. And to diversify into different assets.
Mm-hmm.
You don't need to buy. You don't need to say, hey, I've got $300,000 sitting around and I'm going to do one deal with that 300,000. No. Take that 300,000 and do 6 deals, invest 50 grand into each one of them, or invest, 75, into 4 of them, or whatever it is.
Yep.
So cool. Anything else?
No, I think that's it for today. Kind of 2 topics all in one, Airbnb and syndication.
Yeah. Well, cool. Not really related to each other either.
Yeah. Oh, well.
All right, man. Well, have a fantastic rest of the day. Make every day Saturday.
Thanks. You as well.
Hey, thanks so much for listening. I appreciate you being a loyal listener. I would love to have you go on to our Facebook page and subscribe. Give us a thumbs up. Go on to iTunes or wherever you listen and give us a rating and review. Don't forget to subscribe. Your rating and review just helps us push this out to more and more people and continue to grow our audience, and hopefully positively affect a ton of people out there that really need this and want this. So The other thing I've got for you is a free ebook on my website. So go on to venturedproperties.com, and download our free ebook on real estate and on syndication. And I've got some data points in there, some really good stuff for you. So I'd love to have you take a look at that. It's free. I'm not expecting anything from it. And also, look, if you want some help in multifamily, want some help learning, growing, getting your business off the ground, I would love to talk to you about what it would look like to work with me potentially and see if that's a good fit. So you can go to coachwithdex.com and check that out. And we can definitely have a call. Thanks a lot for listening. You make it a fantastic rest of the day. I'll catch you on the next episode.